All right, there we go. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Deceptilab. This your boy Freeze with the weekly live stream, and today we're gonna talk a little bit about the new endurance bot. So, for those of us on the Decepticon side, that is going to be Bomb-Burst, and then for those of us on the Autobot side, you're gonna be dealing with Metalhawk. And I also am adjusting my lighting a little bit. We're also going to talk a little bit about what caused the delays in HQ 18 Phase 3. Um, and there's actually a lot that went on last week. We actually had to stop for a little bit, so I'll talk about that a little bit as well. And yeah, it should be a pretty good stream. But before we get into any of that, let's take a look at this week's newsletter. Yeah, I see y'all can hear Decepticon dog in the background. Yeah, he's always up to his old tricks. All right, so this week we got event is called The Price, and it's week 3 of the saga. And so this weekend's event is going to be for your Prime Core shards. It's going to be 25 prestigious, 500k points, and so some of the prizes you get up to 5k Prime shards. Um, you're always going to get your 4-star, 3-star, and premium shards. Spark and combat spark, plus some total spark chest. Uh, then your typical alloy energon and gold power cores are pretty good. Looks like for a 500k. All right, let's take a look at some of the game updates. So Prime ended up winning the Unicron tournament, and I'll tell you what, man, the Unicron tournament, man, that was tough. Um, Definitely some great effects they put up there, and shout out to Prime for pulling it off, man. I know they were playing really hard, and they were able to overtake G1 side op. So shout out to Prime for that. Took it the distance though. Took them like 3 games to do it. So shout out to them. Like I mentioned, we also are going to be talking about the endurance bots today. So there goes the concept art for Metalhawk, who's going to be your Autobot version of the endurance bot. We've also got Bomb-Burst, who's going to be the Decepticon for this go around, and they're both going to be air class bots, and you can actually see a little bit of what they were talking about here in regards to the abilities. So the ability is called Lunar Dust, and yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm not gonna go reading through it now. We'll go talk about it here in a little bit. But yeah, that's it. It took some work in playtest, but they're looking pretty good. So we'll talk about that. Applications are still open for playtest. I know a couple of you reached out to me already, just saying, "Hey, man, I put in my playtest application." So a couple of good players I saw out there too that are looking to go into playtest. But if you haven't already, grab the newsletter, put your application in. We could always use more help trying to make the game the best that we can. So yeah. All right, content creators, we still got the main ones, the official ones: Engineer Horse, myself, Soldier, and Sunstreak Awaza. Make sure you take a look at a lot of the unofficial content creators in here as well. A lot of them are already in the chat, and I'll shout them out. Excuse me, I'll shout them out as we do their shout outs later on. But yeah, you guys can feel free to post your links in the chat as well. And like we said, this is the last week, or the next to last week before, the last week before the endurance event. So make sure you guys get your bids in, but also make sure you capitalize on this week's event. And then obviously Bomb Burst and Metal Hawk will be in for the next round next week. Community corner, as always, we got some cool artwork in there. And then we also gonna have some bug fixes. So they said Cheetor, Cyberpass can now be equipped with Cheetor. I guess apparently originally it was getting equipped with Quellagon. Grimlock and Razor Claw, they've increased the movement speed from 1.5 to 1.7. Beachcomber and Deluge, um, they said they haven't changed, but they've done an update for the G1 to state the cooldown of the buff. And I know Dale was asking about that the other day. They had to basically make the tooltip a little clearer. So that's been done. Blue Streak and Wild Rider, kind of the same thing. They've updated the G1 to the highest values. And they said that Wild Rider's version was a little lower than the Blue Streak version. There have been changes to Cosmos and Mind Wipe, um, just because they were overcharging for the ability. That's been fixed. Sandstorm, the tooltip fix. G1 Scavenger tooltip fix. Blitzwing tooltip fix. And in the background, they're working on some fixes for. They're working on some stuff for Interax and Fireglide, Ironhide and Bludgeon, and they're also working for Cybertron Jetfire and Cybertron Starscream, and then also for Nah. So hopefully those will be coming out soon. And let's see what else. And Space Ape is going to be streaming tomorrow, so make sure you get all your questions for them, especially those questions that are like specifically Space Ape questions. Make sure you ask them, not me. I'm just kidding. You guys can ask me. I might tell you I don't know, but and that's all we got for the news this go around. And let's see. All right, so I need to put the live chat on, and it looks like. All right, so there we got the chat. And while I'm messing around with that, I also need to see. Yeah, this test server is broken, so I might have to actually go in and mirror my phone so I can get that. So while I'm doing that, let me go take a look at the chat, see who we got in there, and let's see who was first because I can't see past where it was pinned. Actually, I might be able to. Hold on. Was it Mercenary Terror that was first this time? I can't see it because I got the his comment pinned up there. But anyway, Mercenary Terror is here. One of my good friends, moderators, and fellow content creators. So make sure you, if you hadn't already, to join this channel. And thanks for joining, buddy. We also got Grim Studios, another good friend, fellow content creator and member. Thanks for joining. Uh, my good friend. Oh, did I say moderator? Yeah, content creator, not moderator. Thanks for joining. Chris Harmon, my good friend and moderator and member. Thanks for joining. Let's see, we got Big Joe in here with us again. Thanks for joining. My playtest buddy and good friend, Jacada, a member as well. Thanks for joining. We got Rylan Garcia. Thank you for joining. Esclo Hasi, another good friend and member. Thanks for joining. Kristen Jones is with us again, as well as Games the Angry Birds gameplay. Thank you both for joining the stream. McLovin is here as well. Thanks for joining. Oh man, one of my OG friends, Kosh, has joined the stream. I said that he wanted to let me know that he's fighting the Defiant Little Horde right now. Yeah, thanks for joining, buddy. Let's see who else we got. Nemesis Enforcer is with us. Thanks for joining again, Nemesis. Another playtest friend of mine, King Grimlock, and thanks for joining. Another good buddy of mine and fellow content creator and member, Big Blade. Thanks for joining, Big Blade. Swoop is with us again. Thanks for joining, Swoop. Jam Fortnite is with us again. Thanks for joining. And man, I don't to answer your question. Before how long before the next 5-star batch? That's an ape question. You gonna have to ask them that on the ape stream, man. Like I don't even. I'll be honest with you. Most of the time, I don't even, unless it's in playtest, I don't even talk about it because that's all on their timeline. So we'll see how that works. So, and then we got Fox the Bomb, good friend of mine's. Thanks for joining. And McLovin just signed up for the membership. Thanks for that. Really appreciate that. And I still got to get you guys out. Try to get you guys some new stuff for band members. Get you some new content, man. I've been busy. And I wanted to actually stream last week, but then I also thought we were going to be a little bit further along with the. I thought we were going to be a little bit further along than we were with the new endurance bot. So, but it looks like we got it worked out, and it's all good. They actually signed off on it today. All right, so now I think I actually can mirror my phone because my gameplay stuff it is not working, and I hate that because it's usually a little bit slower when I'm running on my phone, but it'll be all right. Oh man, and Tara, I missed that latest video. I gotta go take a look at that. Let's see. So we got Jay Funk, one of my teammates over at the Horde. Thanks for joining. My another playtest buddy of mine, Sir Ten Lee. Thanks for joining, sir. Yeah, he said Grim Studio. You got membership for 3 months. Yeah, man, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that, McLovin, man. Like, dude, it is some work trying to get these trying to get all this stuff together. Yeah, it is. It's some work for sure. And then right as King Grimlock says it's better on the phone, I just got mine just sitting there stuck. So hopefully I can like actually get this thing to load. Yeah, it's been a mess, man. Like so usually I have this thing on BlueStacks, and the BlueStacks part, it there we go. Okay, well at least I got something. But the BlueStacks part uh is broke, so I had to get with Dale and get that fixed. Man, I literally just got back from my son's track meet and everything. So um and he came in second this time. I said when I missed it stream last week for the track meet, he actually came in first. So he's been doing really good, man. So really thankful for that. You know, he been out there balling. He still got to get used to the discus, but he was doing great with the shot put. All right, so let's check it out. I want to go ahead and take a look. We're going to take a look at our newest bots. So for us on the con side, we got Bomb-Burst. And so Tara asks, how does the test account work? Is it different from your live account? So yeah, so and most of the time, for the most part, when I'm on a stream, I am working from the test account. And so what they do is they give you a completely separate account, and you just get all kinds of stuff up there, man. Like you can just go in there and get like unlimited, like Spark, Combat, Spark, all the resources, stuff like that. So that's how the test account works. Once you're a play tester or a content creator, you get that. When you're a content creator, official content creator for Space Ape, they also give you BlueStacks so that you can. And it actually runs a lot better than it's running right now because right now I'm mirroring from my phone. Um, and it works really well. So you can actually just upload an app from your computer, and then you can just play on the computer. Whereas right now I'm playing on my phone like I would on my live account. Oh shoot, I could have stayed on that page. And so then we're also gonna have Metalhawk, and Metalhawk's his design art is really cool. I say they both actually visually really nice looking bots. And let me know in the chat, based off of what you've heard so far. Most of you guys already read the newsletter and stuff. Probably caught Waza last week. For those of you guys who watch him, let me know what you think of the bot so far, especially after the update that they made earlier today on the abilities and such. But all right, so I want to go take a look at some stats. And so let's go back. And I always like to go show maxed out versions, and hopefully they updated the tooltips. Yeah, it looks like they did update the tooltips. So, um, honestly, man, this bot's it's pretty solid. I always want to do the test. I'm gonna take Fracas off for a second because that's an additional 32% on damage. I want to focus on the stats for a second. And so when I look at the stats, I'm looking at him. He's right now. That's the 5-star level 70 maxed out. Um, he doesn't have any ranks on him right now. He's got him, the base rank at private. So this is what his stats look like. And honestly, man, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Um, you know, with your Titan perks and everything, you got base damage at 886.4, but then you add that 15% for your perk, and honestly, it's not bad. I'm actually gonna remove this for a second too. This G1. With the endurance bots, they always come out with the G1 and everything. So when I look at air class bots, it's really two things that I'm looking at primarily. And it's going to start off with one thing is I'm a sucker for any type of ground damage. So when I see that he's just his normal damage is just high, I'm already interested. And so what I started doing is I started making some comparisons. And one of the ones that I really like as an air class bot for his damage is Acid Storm and Slingshot. Um, so this one I've got up to Captain, and with him at Captain, he's at 1205.8. He's slightly higher in base damage at 911.7, but but right there in that neighborhood. So I think that's a good thing. Not nothing too crazy. You're talking like less than 20 points difference. Um, that ability though, that ability is so it says go airborne and drop a bomb in the air to deal. They got us at 5,199 damage and leave a dust cloud. That's going to reduce the range of foes, and it's going to reduce that range by 40% for 20 seconds. Now we started out kind of low. I want to say, and you guys that are play testers in the chat, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say we started out with like a 5-second ability or something like that. And I can't remember what the percentage was originally. It was much lower. And we just kind of play testers did what play testers do, man. We negotiate this stuff, try to see if we can make it the best we can when we go into the game. Now, one thing that I did immediately is I went in there and I showed the apes some of the stats for other bots that do damage reduction. Now, when we go in the play test, we all are going to make comparisons to different bots, especially if you think it's a bot that you might replace on your war team if you were going to try to. And so some of the comparisons that we made, they were a lot of people. Well, we'll talk about that because I don't want to give away everything that's going to happen with the G1 and stuff like that. But for me, and I'm trying to find where did I put it. And give me a second because I said I'm lost on my own. Let me take the icons down. Maybe that'll help. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So the first thing that I started looking at is I started looking at the combats. and I started looking at the effect that you get from Giza and Dazzle Strike. And so one of the things I started looking at is, man, these guys, they were dazzling enemies for 15 seconds. And so I say, hey man, if we're gonna make something, when we started out at 5 seconds, I say, man, we got to make this a little bit longer, because you got a combat that honestly didn't get used that heavily. I mean, and I take that back. There was one time period where people were using them on defense for a little tiny bit, just because the meta at the time was a bunch of front loaded bases, and this kind of drawed you into the fire or whatever with Giza. So um, that's what the purpose kind of was. But then that was very, very short lived. Most people considered the combat a dud. But I was like, if you're going to try to introduce the same concept for a bot, there's some positives there, because now you're going to have this long range that you can use it with. But Space Ape intended for this to be, they intended for it to be um, a defensive bot, which I'll show you in a little bit. I still don't see that. Um, but then when they first started out, we also had a really, really high cost for this thing. I think it was at 3+5 when we first started. So, through the negotiations, the play testers, we got that whittled down a little bit. That's now at 3+3, which I find to be much more reasonable. And I'm still debating on whether or not I think that's a good cost, because when you reduce range on something, and I'm actually gonna jump out of the camera screen for a second. I'm gonna run a test on my own base, on a base trial, and you can see I got Bomb-Burst sitting right there in the middle of that team. So we'll take a first look, at least a first look as far as this channel goes, on Bomb-Burst to see what it does. So, oops, I did not mean to drop him, but that's okay. And I'm just going to start that run all over again, because I started tapping all kinds of stuff I wasn't supposed to. Alright, so let me go in. Now, when I'm looking at something that's going to reduce range, and I look at a low cost for it, I do always have I'm going to have my concerns, because my first concern when I look at price for or cost for any ability is this going to be spammable? Which in this case I think it somewhat is. But when I use this ability, so right there I'll use that missile launcher. It's going to start off firing, and with at 40%, and that's a pretty. If you look at that AOE and you look at where you can see the dark circles around it, that's a pretty decent size AOE. And so you're going to be able to stop a lot of defenses, especially when you use this in the team. He's not going to get killed like I just did there. What's going to happen is, as you use him in the team, you're going to be able to stop everybody from shooting back at you on offense. Um, so the more and more we talked about it, I said, man, this is really more of an offensive bot to me than a defensive bot. But um, and I'll probably run it in the outpost here in a minute, just to see some of the positives and negatives of that. But when I think about a bot that costs 3+3, and he can stop defenses, like large areas of defenses, from shooting at you, I'm always going to look at that as a positive, right? So then some of the comparisons that we started making is really based on a combination of the G1 core and the ability itself. And so if you classify it as something that you're using for protection, before the changes, one of the things we were saying is like, all right, well, you will use Cutthroat and Tracks for the protection piece. His duration is long. It's actually, with the ability 11, it's all the way up to 21 seconds. Now, we were talking about this when the duration, we started out with 5 seconds, for the duration bomb um, for Bomb-Burst and Metalhawk. We went up to 10 seconds, and for the past 2 days or so, Teslas was like, man, that's not really good enough either. I was actually pretty content with 10 seconds, and we were going to reduce the ability damage at first. And I was like, well, you know what? I would like for this dude to be able to do certain things. I want him to be able to at least take out a build bot or something like that, right? So that was kind of the thing that was was pulling me away from possibly going from this spot. But then we woke up today and they was like, yeah, we got it at 20 seconds. You know, it's going to keep its damage. We're good. So one of the things I was talking to my fellow testers about, and I actually talk about it as I go through my team, uh, and why I put Bomb Burst in the position that I did. So, and bonus points if you can tell me who's missing from my war team. I will give somebody a Freezy chest if they can tell me which bot I got missing from the team. Who did I replace Bomb Burst with? And y'all had a week off since you've seen it last, but just to throw some fun into the mix. But what I started looking at is I got a bunch of protection, I got a bunch of healing on my team already. And so, I get a good amount of protection from run amok. And like you guys been seeing me say before on this stream, I like to leapfrog a lot of my abilities. It's one of the reasons why I brought Cutthroat back to the team, is because in Unicron League, man, some of that damage, it happens so fast that I needed multiple layers of protection to be able to survive it. And so, I used the 50% damage absorption off of Run Amok. I leapfrog that ability, and you go back, swing back around, and get Cutthroat in the mix. Go get him to block 60%. And what that does for me is it keeps me from using a bunch of ability points. When I bought Octo Punch on the team, it's just see spray for you guys on the Autobot side. Run Amok is red alert, and then obviously I already said cut through his tracks. But when I started using Octo Punch, one of the things, and everybody always questions me about this pairing, I put the Micronus on him so he could heal all of my guys that were all my ranged guys in the back, and I didn't even bother with trying to do the volatile mixture thing because all I was using them for really was the stun, and so I got now have 4 different ways that I am going about this on this team to prevent me from either getting shot at, and if I am getting shot, having it a very reduced level of damage while I'm healing at almost every level on my team. I'm healing it there, and so that's how I've kind of built that team. But before I go run Bomb Burst with a team, let's go take a look in the chat and see what's going on. Foster Bomb says, "We see you, Freeze. No need for the arrow." Yeah, Grim Studio says special server for the. Yeah, and that's going back to the question about playtest. It's pretty much like everything is free on there, but you can't like you can't go play anybody on the live server or anything like that. It's just for testing purposes. Candyman, I missed you earlier. Thanks for joining, but one of my good friends and members says he hopes they bring in Skull Grin at some point. All right, I see some people in there answering the question about who is missing off of my war team, and I actually got a couple of correct answers in there, so I'm gonna give you a couple more seconds for that. Now, come back to it. Um, Grim Studios says that he don't think the ability 11 on Cuddy is worth it. What do you not like about it? Let me know in the chat what you don't like about that ability 11. Michael Cooper joined the chat. Thanks for joining. Hey yo, y'all just in there just talking trash now. One of my good friends, well, a couple of my good friends, tracks in this, made a guess. Junk, Junk Man, one of my teammates says I dropped Mind Wipe. Yeah, trust me, Mind Wipe was not on that team. Candyman joking around saying Cyclonus. Grim Studio said Scylla. All right, so let's see. All right, so I'm gonna cut it off. So it looks like, let's see, a bunch of y'all got it right, and I probably shouldn't have talked about them earlier. But yeah, Acid Storm is missing from the stream. I said I know certainly got it right. He said he got a run, so I'll hit him up later. Sunstrike got it right. Michael Cooper technically got it right, but I had already removed Slipstream before, so yeah, I removed Slipstream before the Unicron tournament. Or during the very first week of the Unicron tournament because she just wasn't getting it done. So my team, the one that was missing of my recent war team, was actually Acid Storm. So Merc Terror got it right. Kristen Jones got it right. Chris Harmon got it right. So yeah, so all you guys hit me up on Discord or the Line app, and I'll send you a Freezy chest. Probably be tomorrow because like I just got in the house, but yeah, let me know and I'll hit you back up with the Freezy chest. All right, so let me go in here and I'll pick on my teammate here, Texas Hammer, for a second. I know he won't mind. So what I want to do is kind of show how I'm using this bot in a team. So I'm going to jump out of the camera real quick and we'll take a look at how I'm using Bomb-Burst. And it really does help just keep some of that fire off of you. And I probably should have, I'm actually going to come back with a combiner just in case. And I don't think that I actually need it because I don't think he has his charge, but and I always be complaining to you guys anyway. I was like, man, I can't play with the mouse anyway, so it's kind of nice to play on my phone for once. All right, so I'm gonna come up this side. And one of the things that I've been talking about doing, because some of these ranges are so long, one of the things I've been doing is I've been using this thing on build bots. And at this point now, and I'm actually wondering because I thought we had got increased damage because one thing I was doing, I was targeting the build bots with this thing, and it made everything kind of work easier. But when you look at the range that he has, you can actually stop quite a bit of stuff. Now, this is my first time testing it today with the new damage values, so now it's like not taking out the build bot where at first it was. So I'm gonna stop for a second. I'm gonna take a look back, and we actually still got to take a look at that G1. So let me first off let me get back in camera. So let's take a look at the G1 for this thing. So on the one that I got at level 20, that's not going to work because they haven't filled in the tool tips for it yet. So I'm going to use the one that's at level 19, and we'll just take a look at what it does. And so, and it was actually in the newsletter today, so I'm gonna pull that back up as well. Because it did change earlier today, and honestly, I hadn't gotten around to it. But you can see the damage values up there. They're showing like the ability damage, and it's actually got an element of speed reduction. So what I'll do is I actually just go back to the newsletter so we can read that from there because it'll be actually be easier. Just because a lot of times when we're doing playtests, they'll give us all the abilities and stuff. They'll give it to us in Discord, but they usually like a lot of times like the concept art and the tooltips. They usually a lot of times they'll get done last. Um, so with this ability 11, the ability 11, so like mentioned earlier, the ability is actually 10 seconds. When you go and get to the ability 11, it goes to 20 seconds. And then the G1 is going to increase the ability damage, and enemies within the lunar dust receive an attack and movement speed reduction. Now, when I go back and I look at this ability, and let me switch back over to the battlefield or to the game screen. Um, 80% is pretty good for a speed reduction. Speed reduction of of 80% is pretty good. As I say, and so one of the comparisons because of this G1, one of the comparisons we started making was to Brainstorm and Skyhawk. Uh, their ability actually runs to 95%. So when you look at it and with it being like a 15% difference, and this is just a G1 core. It's not like the actual bot ability. And when you look at the cost difference, so we're running this with the G1 at 3+3. If you're going to use Brainstorm and Skyhawk, that's at 6+3 for to get the 95% speed reduction. And now it comes with some more damage as well, and I get that. I get that. But now, with me having, and even if, and this is a real healthy balance for me because for me it was really important for me to take out that build bot. So I'm gonna go back now that I have a power core on it, and even if I would have had a enhanced ordinance or something like that, I would have been fine. Yeah, and King Grimlock said he hadn't tested the new values yet. Um, and trust me, I wanted to. And I tested, dude. I tested the hell out of this thing yesterday, and then now we looking at the new stuff today. Um, but based off of all the testing we've been doing for the last, last few days, I already knew I was gonna be happy with what we got this go around. So I'm gonna try the same test. I love the range on this guy, so I'm gonna go hit up some of those build bots. And see now I'm getting shot at in the back there by that laser, but I also can use my ability that I got there for Octo Punch, kind of stop some of that up front because as you can see the damage it happens fast up there. And one thing that I was using Acid Storm for was I was using him to pop a lot of my outposts, but because his is damage over time, it takes longer than it would take for some of the other bots. And so what I can kind of do here is work in layers. I can throw down some cutthroat smoke. um, when I am actually getting shot at, I can run some of those that run amok ability when I get into a little bit of trouble. But he's keeping a lot of he's keeping a lot of that fire off of me, just because of that 40% damage reduction. Right now, is he hacked or stunned? I can't really tell. Well, I'll just pop up on the other side with my combiner to try to keep him from getting stunned there. Yeah, and that's a good point too, KG. The other bot that we were talking about was Blades. We were kind of comparing this bot to Blades and Dirge, and there were some really good comparisons. And honestly, there were some pretty good conversations regarding this bot, um, just in playtest. And I had to admit to you, um, I was being, I was being kind of greedy because I don't feel like I don't feel like when you say an air class bot has like 5k damage or so, I don't feel like that's a big ask for him to at least keep that damage. Because we were talking about at one point possibly not doing any damage at all, and all it does is a damage reduction effect, which for 20 seconds of not having the ability, to be shot at, I think it's pretty good. And so, we'll see how that goes. But I am considering going for the bot, and the only thing that's holding me up at this point from not going for the bot is because like I'm actually gonna be out of town during the endurance weekend. So I could make time for it during my trip to Charlotte. But I was like, is this a must have for me? I'm kinda leaning towards using this one to replace Acid Storm for me. Um so I'll probably wind up doing it. So let's see what everybody's talking about in the chat. Kosh says I want Thunderwing and Death's Head. Yeah, that'll be cool. I know who Mercenary Terror wants. He says bring in Jaguar. Yeah, okay, so Grim Studios is going back to our earlier conversation saying he thinks Cuddy's good and he uses him a lot, but I don't think it's worth it until he's got a 5-star. So, I mean, I tell you what though, people are using his 4-star and Prime League and Unicron League and everything else. So, and to be honest with you, I did his ability 11 when Space Ape was pretty much dead set that they were not going to put this dude into a batch. Um, maybe I think we're past that point where they should be able to add him, but he's still not making the votes and everything like that. So who knows? Let's see. Jacada says it was announced this morning in playtest chat that for balance purposes, the speed reduction in G1 is going to be reduced so that 80% is not the final amount. Oh yeah, that's right. And they did say that on Discord. So um yeah, we'll see that come down. Which honestly, and I actually forgot that they said that because I did actually read through that as well. And I think that's fair. I think they said they were reducing it to 40%. Am I correct, guys? You guys can let me know, Jacada and King Grimlock, if that was what they came up with. But yeah, I think that I think that's appropriate. I think that because I actually gave that comment a thumbs up too because I think that that's going to be more online with I think that's going to be more online with a a G1 core, kind of like I was saying before when it was like 80%. And I was like, man, this is coming really close to the slowdown abilities of an actual ability that you're getting for a bot. So they'll I'm sure they'll show the final version with all this stats and stuff tomorrow. So that'll be cool. Okay, Kristen Jones said she just maxed Cuddy last weekend and as the first max bot followed by 5-star Soundwave. Nice. Yeah, Big Blade, they yeah, they've been scared. Now I don't know if they still scared to put them in the batch for tracks and cutthroat, but that has been the fear for a little bit. So yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, and Grim, to your point. And that's the other thing too. When guys talk about that the ape said they wouldn't put a bot into the batch. Like we were talking about Deathsaurus and Star Saber. In this case, well, what Grim's talking about. One thing that I've learned in my time in playtesting, my time playing this game, is you gotta watch certain phrases that Giannis says. Um, so one of the key phrases he says that sticks out to me is when he says "no plans." There's no plans for it, and I'm a pretty good at reading people and their body language, their tone, and everything like that. So if people were asking me, "Hey, when is this bot gonna get a 5 star?" and I just say no plans, and I say like less than like a couple of words, I say like a couple of words, so not many words about it. That's kind of my way of being like, leave me alone about it. And that's the kind of energy he kind of gives off when those questions get asked on stream. In my opinion, now I might be wrong on it, but I have studied the verbiage that they use it on a lot of this stuff. And so, like with Star Saber and Deathsaurus, he just kept saying no plans. It didn't mean it was never gonna happen. He means that, hey, we didn't have that written into any of our stuff right now. We ain't had that. We didn't have it written into. Um, we didn't have it written into like, and some of the stuff they actually plan like a year, 2 years out. You know, so but later on they was like, hey, people want this, and then then that drove a massive rework. So because he had to keep up with the meta, which I still don't think he has, but it's better than it was. Okay, and then to clarify what I was saying, they saying that they would reduce the G1 for Bomb Blast in half or whatever. So we saying 40% is the assumption. So yeah, and that's what I was saying. And I get it. And honestly, when you do something like a damage reduction and then you do a slowdown behind it, it's kind of like, for me, somewhat, it's kind of like, what's the point? Like, I'm not being shot at in the first place, so why do I need a slowdown? But that wasn't the argument. That we had so many other debates going on. That wasn't the argument I was willing to have. So, and that's going right back to what I was saying. I didn't explicitly hear them saying Sentius was not going to be a 5 star. What I heard them say was there were no plans, and you know, to me, and I'm not a semantics guy, but to me, that's two completely different things. And it's actually been a couple of times I've been tempted to go back and like completely listen to uh, a stream again just to look at the exact words that he's used. Um, but I do kind of think it's a difference when you saying, "Hey, we don't plan on doing that." I don't mean it's not going to happen. This means this not what we're doing right now. Big Blade says when he says no plans, be suspicious of them. And you know what, Ian? And first off, Ian, thanks for joining. Um, but he says they get a 5 star when the meta changes and they aren't top tier. Deathsaurus and Sentius are not clutch bots anymore, so here they are. And dude, honestly, that's a valid point. Like, I want to say, like a lot of times, like with Sentius Malice, man. Like when I first started streaming, like that was my dude, even as a 4 star, and then they made, and then eventually I benched him when they made Impactor, because Impactor was better, and I was running the sack strategy, and Impactor would just keep everybody off of my team while he was using his Amalgamous Core, and it was awesome, and I was running through events with him and everything else, so I leveled him really fast. Um, Deathsaurus, everybody loved when they were in their younger playing days, um, myself included. But those guys weren't the bots that they were. They had to let some power creep set in before they became 5 stars. And I'm trying to think of who I was talking to about that earlier this week. but it's just one of those things that just becomes kind of difficult to manage because you make a bot, the bot's borderline overpowered for a bit, and then power creep sets in. You stop using the bot, they bring the bot back. I was like, for me, any bot that I liked a lot is a 4 star. I always want to use as a 5 star, but how do you balance that? And do you just make your upgrades that you give them to as a 5 star? You just make them really, really mid, and then some people will be like, "Man, I'm not even gonna go for that because I don't need it." I don't know what the answer to that actually is. So Trax says he wants 5 star cup. That's another one. Now that one right there is one of the bots. Now, if they want to do 5 star combiners, eventually they'll have to do them because Dead End is a combiner piece for the Decepticons. Now that's one of the ones that I think Giannis is terrified to actually do. If I'm being honest. And E-Rod says join the stream. Thanks for joining, buddy. Nah, never too late to join one of the streams. But yeah, Indicator says same thing I said. No plans is a politically correct way of saying not right now, which is that's the way that I've been interpreting it. It's like, you know, but it leaves a little bit of suspicion because you don't know if it's gonna come or not. But but what I'm not hearing from that is no, we'll never get that. Um, it could be a couple of things. They could come up with counters for stuff, or you know, you could just flat out get to the point where um, defense has outpaced that bot as a whole. Like I do think that you can use that 5 star uh Sentius Malice, even right now in any level of war. The thing is you probably don't really want to. Like right now, the walk team with the rush tank, back when I was doing sack, it made sense to do use a bot like him. So yeah, everybody talking about with 5 stars that we can't get in the game, or that we haven't gotten in the game that they want in the game. 5 star tracks, and let's see. Yeah, it said dead end is situational. From where and that's Grim Studios' comment. Now I'll tell you this. Um, a while back ago, it's been a few months now. We were going through some wars and we were looking this. I had some teammates up there, um, and we had this one guy that just kept doing the dead end sack, and he was pulling it off successfully for the most part. But it's just one of those things that, well, first off, it can be kind of sack can be expensive. Period. So like, the only one sack that I really really enjoyed doing was that Ramjet Goldfire sack, and and particularly for me, it's just because it was just so aggravating for everybody. Because I mean, I had got it down to a science, and they said, "Yeah, you're going to change that." And then I started trying to do block walk, I started perfecting the block walk for a little bit, but I just never felt comfortable in it. And I say, ultimately, you know, the one that bothered me was this dude right here. Like I started looking and blurring and runabout, and I was like, bro, like that to me was the cheat code bot of sack, and everybody was talking about like all these massive counters and stuff for Goldfire and Ramjet, and I was like, dude, y'all gonna let this dude off the hook? I ain't like that. But I saw people doing it with Lugnut and stuff like that, and I was just like, nah, that's too expensive for my blood. Death Source, even for a little bit. Another one is expensive, and I ain't like that. But like Goldfire and Ramjet, I was cool with. Dead End, Dead End took me a long time to even get a 3 star or a 5 star. Um, but to your point, I do feel like that was kind of situational for me. Flame War I used a lot for sack. So um, so the other thing I was going to talk about, I was talking about HQ18 Phase 3, and so we wound up going on hold, and I told you what we were working on, and I actually told you the week before when I saw it kind of go onto my test account. I started talking about it. Um, but we had to start working on the endurance bots. And a couple of weeks ago, we was just like, look, man, like we're gonna put this on hold for now, just because we're just not getting stuff that we think that's gonna advance the game further in difficulty. And the apes were basically saying we didn't want to make it overly difficult this time. We want to make it more difficult in phase 4. And it's all that we've been talking for the longest time about how there's going to be a new defense and all this kind of stuff. But one of the things that I think, as much as we debated about anything, I think the one thing that play testers pretty much unanimously agreed on is that this thing, I don't like using the U word. I don't like saying useless, but they were basically saying like that laser turret was useless. Which for me, I think everything has a use. I think we have to go and, but I do think these things kind of need somewhat of a rework. But I also wanted to look at how they were. Oh shoot, I forgot that I'm not on my. I also was looking at how they were trying to change the anti-air cores. So I actually got to go. That's the new one that I just kind of got sitting there for reference. But they were talking about doing changing these anti-air cores, and I was like, for what? Because they want to do some damage to ground targets, and I was like, honestly, I'd let them do. I always felt like they should have been able to use them for ground and air targets. But most people was like, why are we focused on that? People aren't really using that many air class bots at top leagues like that anyway, and it just became a mess. But then the Prime Core situation became a mess as well because we never tested the Alpha Trion Core, and then we still had, we still had a bunch of other Prime Cores in there that were going to come out, and hadn't been a lot of changes to those. So I actually got multiple of them because they've given them to me multiple times. But we were started because a lot of us OG testers already had this from the last round. So when I started looking at that they were trying to do Onyx Prime Core, I was like, okay, this doesn't seem like it's changed that much. It was deemed overpowered in phase 2. In phase 3, it was kind of just like, all right, man, like we're not changing that. And then primarily it wasn't changing because all of the debates were happening about Alpha Trion giving that range boost that they were talking about giving. That never came to fruition. We never even, and this was all debates that we were having before we even tested any of the prime cores. I think about a week went by and I was like, hey man, are y'all going to actually hand the prime cores out so people can use them? And so I kept bringing that back up. I was like, well, damn, we just, we shit canned the idea for a prime core that we never even tested because nobody even had it yet. Then we were looking at Solus, and I was like, all right, man, well, Solus hadn't changed. They originally tried to release that in phase 2, and it wasn't good. And it's not good now. So I started thinking of a bunch of different ways on how we could improve Solus as well. But so then you're down to just that, and trying to think of what else was we on. And then we started talking about Nexus. And so we started looking at Nexus for a little bit. And I started to really fall in love with it because Nexus, and at first I was kind of pissed off because I was like, it's just going to do additional damage to your combiner. It was just similar to what it does on the bot core. But then I actually started looking at this thing and I started looking at just how quickly it can kind of shred your combiner when you use it. So I'm actually going to try that real quick because what I saw was pretty impressive. But we never really got to talk about it because we got stuck on all this other stuff. We got stuck on, nah, man, we should have a fifth outpost bot and stuff. And I do, for the people that want that, I do get that. Personally, I wanted a third MD, yes. so that you could go put MDS at different layers, instead of just stuffing them in the back by the HQ under the shield generator cluster, which, you know, I take responsibility for that. I think when playtest opened up with these prime cores, I think I was the first person to kind of build a shield generator cluster. But then I started looking at this, and so you can see my Nexus core back there on that MDS, and man, like, especially with like God Neptune and Ruination out here right now, um, that core, man, it works pretty fast when you use it on the MDS. Now, there's always going to be the argument, and that was the argument we were having in playtest too. There's like, well, some of these prime cores, well, who's going to remove this to use, or not necessarily for Nexus, but for other prime cores? There's like, no, the way you do it is Megatronus, which is another one that I was like the first one to try, was the Megatronus core on MDS because it scales per the damage of whatever it is that you're using. So I started using that early on, but I also started looking at Nexus and saying, hey man, if I wanted to use this on combiners, uh, could I do that as well? So, which like currently, I think I'm using. Um, I currently think that I'm using Megatronus and the Vector, which a lot of people are using as well. So I wanted to open up the flexibility a little bit. Like I wouldn't mind if I had like a Alpha Trion when originally they were trying to give it range, and then you have a third one. And so say I got two in the cluster. Say I had one like right here somewhere, and if you extended the range even further, I might be able to like reach the launch pad or something. That's what I was kind of thinking about. But everybody wants this fifth outpost spot. So, and a lot of the changes that we're making, like, we started talking about adding, the extra stasis mines and stuff. And honestly, at this point, I felt like that was kind of unnecessary because, the reason why it came up is because for those testers that's been around for a while, um, when we were doing some HQ upgrades, and it was around the time that SAC was really popular, we needed them. But now, I mean, they nice to have, but now we kind of don't need them. I damn sure don't feel like we need the additional Spider-Mans, but people love them. So, but honestly, HQ18 Phase 3, the testing we did do was getting kind of bland. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes, man. Like, um, hopefully, real shortly after the endurance event, we can kind of get back into it. But the we just had to put it on hold to work the endurance bots, and we had to put it on hold because honestly, the prime cores just weren't that good, or they hadn't even made any changes to them. So I mean, eventually, we get to actually sit down and come up with new ideas for the prime cores. I feel like Onyx will probably be fun, and Nexus. I don't know. I feel like Nexus is missing something, even though I really like it a bunch. But we didn't really getting in anything to kind of increase to the difficulty. It's almost like we kind of just getting busy work. And I was just like, kind of like, why are we doing that? And a lot of the testers kind of agreed on that, but we couldn't kind of agree on what it was that we actually needed. But I think everybody kind of agreed that it won't ready to go yet. So we'll come back to it at some point. Mike Berge says we should have add another outpost for HQ18. That's the only defense that'll make a dent other than MDS. Um, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Um, and one of the things I was thinking about, even though I didn't necessarily want a fifth outpost bot, one of the things I did think about is the versatility that comes with you having another outpost bot. Um, the other thing I thought about though is from an offensive standpoint, the balance is actually kind of good if you keep your bot ratio with two attackers to one defender, because now you got because you got to go fight all the defenses. You got to fight the four outpost bots, so a ratio of 2 to 1, and then you also got the combiner that you got to fight, and stuff like that. So I like four. I like the number four. I'm not gonna say that I'm just outrageously against a fifth outpost bot. I just think that there's other stuff I would do in the game. The first thing I would do is I would rotate war effects more frequently. Nothing causes more problems for player. Now, granted, at the very top, at the very very top, like if you're one of the top five players, like I am, like you adjust to the game quicker because you have more variety of what you have available to you. But even Unicron League was hard for us guys at the top league. I mean, I was scoring like, in the 200s most of the time, 225s and stuff like that in Unicron League. Not going to try to front on anybody about that. So it shows me, what that shows me is that adjusting effects, it does work. You just got to put the work in as a company to go in there and do it. And you got to do it regularly, because what happens is people they'll go rush and get this new bot. It'll be cool, but they'll still be winning. And it might not even be this bot, a bot that they like. Say any bot that you want to go and chase and that you do that hits the meta, and then everybody gets bored because they're starting to win too easily. So you got to just shake things up. But I feel like when we were changing war effects like every month or so, that was great. And then you can kind of work the little micro changes in there through the different phases and stuff. But like phase like HQ18 was tough when it came out. Phase 2 was tough when it came out. Phase 3 we started looking at it, and it's like, man, this doesn't change shit. So and so then the conversation became, if we go to phase 4, if we don't make anything more difficult now, and then we go make it super difficult in phase 4, that's going to have a more negative effect um, than it probably would to make one small change that bumps the difficulty up now. And that wasn't my idea. That was some of the other playtesters saying that. And when they said it like that, I was like, ah, man, that makes a lot of sense. So, King Grimlock says it's about separating good from mediocre. 18 phase 18.3 was going to be mediocre. Yeah. And it's tough because they was like, the only tough part for me is I don't know what the apes know going forward. And that's the part that makes it difficult, because whatever they build in phase 4, whatever this new defense is, it could be so devastating and we'd be like, damn, I wish we would have left. I wish we would have left phase 3 mid, but I doubt we'll probably go back and think about it like that. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, man. And I see that Ray Wave X has joined the stream and said, "Hey, what's going on, buddy?" Yeah, so Big Blade said laser turret with anti-air can attack ground targets by prioritizing air targets. So this is, like I said, this is the one that we get on the test account. So what they want to do is they want to have it do less damage to ground targets. Now this core might not even get changed at this point. This was going to be one of the phase 3 upgrades. Um, but it was going to prioritize air targets. So if you had a jet flying past, it was going to prioritize it. But if it wasn't shooting anything, because one of the biggest drawbacks to this turret was that if you weren't flying a jet past it, it wasn't going to do anything. And I was like, I always felt like that was kind of messed up. And it was really just a counter that got put in place at one point when everybody was just spamming jets. You know, they had a tactic called air show, when people were just getting close enough to go use all their air class bots on the HQ. So they had to put this thing into the game. You know what I mean? And since then, when people stopped using jets, it's heavily in the top leagues. With a few exceptions, but when they start using them as heavily, there was no need for this core at all. So people actually started going to this dude, the laser ricochet. But then even then, it's like then we got to a point where that wasn't really having much of an effect. So it's kind of like, what do you do? Ray Wave X says the game has to evolve to stop it going stale. Which yeah, I think everybody agrees with that. Like and I've been finding myself, and I've been saying this for a while for myself. Um, like just doing the same types of events all the time, and regardless of what you change, regardless of what you put in there for the prizes, that gets boring to me. War War is starting to get a little bit stale, honestly, because it's like you go play in Prime League and you pretty much you get to a point where you know you're gonna win, and that's why I like the war effects, even if it's just for a week at a time. Like it was one point that first 2 weeks of new war effects I'd struggle, then I'd figure something out, and then you start winning again, and you winning for periods of time is fun. Um, like every single battle and stuff like that. But then I started looking around and saying, man, like we really just go in there and do these 5 attempts every day and then just roll out. So for me, it's going to take more than that. Like the apes have been talking about making a new war mechanic. That would be great. I know a couple of guys that had some good ideas. Takeda had some good ideas, and a couple of other players as far as adding a new war feature. But it's gonna take something like that, and it's gonna take them making consistent changes. I mean, dude, like we waited an entire year between phase 2 and phase 3. That's too long for the defensive meta not to change very much. I mean, granted, in this time, I think it was probably around this time last year, like the base type that I had on the screen right now was a thing, but then people learned how to beat that, and then people started putting all the resources in the front and everything else in the back, and people started beating that, and now you got a couple of other base designs that people are copying and stuff like that. So if you leave it just up to us, there've been times in war where I faced the same base design 4 out of 5 times in war. I think it might have been one time that I faced the exact same base design in the same alliance 5 times. So this is the player base that you're dealing with, and so you're gonna have to go make little small changes to the war effects side to kind of push that along. The problem with that, I think, though, is you're not gonna make any money off of that either. Then at that point you're just worried. If you're the developers, you're pretty much just working for free at that point. But your players are engaged, so engaged players spend money. King Grimlock says, um, yeah, they also had to go through the endurance bots. Oh, okay, yeah, because the endurance bots, yeah, a lot of times, and the thing is I don't think it is that they don't have a plan. I think what it is they're trying to do something so different with each endurance bot so that it's appealing. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if you do something different, and it's even somewhat similar to the bots that we do like to use, is that going to be good enough for, honestly, and I'll be honest with you, there's two types of players that I really look at that are going for endurance bots. And typically that's going to be collectors, and now that's probably the bulk of them because a lot of the endurance bots just hadn't been as good as a lot of top players would have wanted. But the other group would be, I would say, be the top players. Um, that if the bot's actually good. So it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to try to balance a bot when we've seen a lot of endurance bots that start out getting very powerful, and then by the time they hit the batch, we always try to do a rework when the batch comes, and then they start changing stuff, and then you know free to play, and everybody else is like, man, this isn't as good as it was. So it becomes tough. Yeah, and Jacada said, well, actually, let me read Mike Berge's comment. 100% agree on anti-air. I've never used those cores, borderline worthless. Um, yeah, there was, believe it or not, there was a point in time where those were pretty legit cores. That time just came and went. Power creep set in. Let's see. Raywave X says, I remember a game called Global Assault, which I paid money into. That was taken from the Play Store due to underdevelopment. Oh man, that sucks. And I said, and I just hope that this game can kind of hold on. But it's going to take some effort, and there's been some positive steps so far this year. So, um, the endurance bot thing, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's a thorn in my side for me because you know, like Deluge is great. Deluge and Beachcomber are great. I mean, and they would something that you can actually use on defense, so that was cool. Um, then you had like stuff like Predacon and Inferno before that, man, and that really sucked. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think that our comparisons that we were making to Octopunch and Sea Spray, and it can't be better than that, and I think that made it suck because we started overthinking it in playtest. But that's not the case for every bot. Some of the bots, so and some of the bots is just are actually just bad bots when in concept. But this one kind of started out bad, and it's like, look, we can push the boundary a little bit further on that. So I think honestly, for endurance this time around, I think the playtesters did an outstanding job. I wasn't always present the whole time because I've been busy, but when I was present, um, we came up with a lot of good ideas together this time. I think this is one of the better jobs we've done on an endurance bot in terms of just playtester teamwork. So, King Grimlock, yeah, and that was another one. Blue Streak was a good one. I mean, Knockout and Skids were endurance bots, and those came out pretty good. I still don't like what they did to him later on when they changed his ability, but I mean it's still on my war team today. And King Grimlock said that Leo Prime is growing on him. Yeah, I had to see that one because like the original version we had in playtest, I really liked a lot. I did complete that event. I do have the bot. I just don't use it. I don't even know if I have leveled it at all. No, I think I leveled it maybe to like 20. I had to go look. I hadn't been hearing a whole bunch of feedback about Metalhawk though. Big Blake. I know you said that some people were saying that he sucks right off rip. I hadn't really heard anything about it, but we'll see. I probably should have actually just did like a separate video for this, so but before the event, people can like just go look at it. So I have to try to work that out because I know people ain't gonna sit up there and watch the whole live stream. Not everyone, but the people that just want to know about the bot can kind of learn about it in about 10 minutes. I really do like the War for Cybertron cores too, Mike. Um, I wanted to see more of them, but it was kind of like one of them things. It was like they made a couple of them, and when the Netflix series were coming out, and then they just kind of just stopped. Even though it was like a whole bunch of bots in the game, they just stopped making cores. Um, I would have liked to have seen. I like to see more skins. Period. Like they essentially sell you the Cyber Pass skin. Well, no, yeah. I mean, essentially that's what's happening, and those are cool. But I mean, like y'all could have did a. I don't know. So you could have did a whole. It's so many universes, the lore that you could use to go do skins with. So who knows. Yeah, and I do agree with that, Mike. That Michael Cooper with Predacon and Inferno's biggest flaw was not being able to equip range combats. Yeah, that's true. And we argued up and down for that. They said, "No, we want this one to be different." and that kind of stood like that. So Jamie Carpenter asked me the question, and somebody asked me this every time an endurance bot comes up, and they said, "Will this dude right here, will Bomb-Burst make my war team?" Now I'll tell you this: if I go for him, if I knowing that I got to go take a trip to Charlotte that weekend, knowing that I probably have some time to myself to be able to play the game, if I'm not, I I'm gonna say if I go for him, then yes, he probably will make my war team at some point. If I don't go for him, it will be because I don't want to commit to putting in those kind of points while I got a trip planned that weekend, and that'll be like the only reason. But as far as like I like the cost, cost wise, like I said, if I do it, I would be replacing Acid Storm. He costs 1 point more on repeat use. I'll probably use it as his ability about 3 times. But I also won't be getting shot at, so I'll also be gaining a lot of, not XP. I'll be gaining a lot of ability points back. Um, so yeah, if I go for him, I'm going for him with the hopes that I'll use him on my war team at some point. Hmm. So Big Blade was talking about using Leo Prime on defense. I have to. If you come up with something for that, hit me up on Discord and show me how that will work. Or yeah, hit me up on Discord and tell me how exactly that will work for you, Big Blade, because I'm not seeing that one. But I don't see everything, and I know you get really creative on defense and can come up with some stuff. So yeah, yeah, hit me up and we can talk about that. And then Michael Cooper asked the question: Isn't Titan Assault not meant to have enemy Titans on bases? No, it shouldn't. But yeah, they did. They definitely could make more War for Cybertron. Yeah, War for Cybertron's cores. Um, yeah, Jakeda said he got the War for Cybertron Springer toy on his desk. Yet there's no War for Cybertron Springer in games. He said it's a conspiracy against Springer. Yeah, and so Highly Classified said, why reduce the range by 40%? Is that idea solution for Ruination? So I don't think it has anything to do with Ruination. Um, just the range reduction. Originally, like they wanted it to be something they use on defense, but I was like, I don't think you really want to on defense. You're not really focused that much on the range, and we already saw that with the combat bot that they had up there with Giza. But I think of it as more of like a support type ability that you use on offense, where it's just keeping you from getting shot at, which is cool because you can use it at some really long ranges. And the range boost is something that gets added a lot of times to power cores, and then it gets added to war effects and stuff like that. So you're gonna have something that you can use to counter all that. Yeah, and then, Jamie Carpenter says his ability stats look better than what Waza showed. Yeah, I mean, we kept working on it since then. Like Waza showed his last week, and I didn't catch all of his stream, but I did go look at what he was talking about, and you know, what a difference a week makes, right? And I'm pretty sure he'll probably stream tomorrow, and he'll probably talk about it some more, and he'll be showing like this version. This version's pretty lit. So, but yeah, to your point, if it stays like that, it is worth going for. Yeah, and then there was that also because King Grimlock reminded me that on defense range bots wouldn't be targeted, but you know I'm looking at that like, hey man, like if I take that like that's a bug, and looking at how it would actually work. Now, what I did see is it was pretty much dependent on the G1 core because the slowdown was so strong. And but honestly, people aren't really using those kind of bots like Guy Hawk and Brainstorm. Not a lot of people at the top levels are using those in Outpost either. So then you probably want the range to work, but then at the same time, like a real crafty player will see that that's an outpost bot in a war and send a hollow that way, or they'll send a tank to go and eat that ability, and then it's a wasted ability. So like for me, it never seemed like it was a defensive bot at all. And yeah, it's exactly what you just said in the chat too, as well. So we on the same page in that regard. Is that people would just pop the outpost from a distance. You never even worry about it again. And I see Tails joined the chat. Thanks for joining. But cool, man. So anyway, guys, thanks for being patient with me this week. With all the hiccups with the live stream today and having missed the live stream last week. Um, the good news is I shouldn't have to deal with any more of the track stuff, at least not on a Wednesday. So I'll be back next Wednesday at the regular time at 6. But yeah, thank you guys for joining, and I will see you next time, and I will see you on the battlefield. Freezy is out.